And welcome back to another episode of the Zero Empty Spaces podcast, episode 45, with Boca Raton Innovation Campus resident artist Jen Stover, here from our beautiful studios at The Brick. If you didn't know about Zero Empty Spaces, myself, Evan Snow, and my business partner, Mr. Andrew Martineau, came up with an initiative as arts advocates, creative entrepreneurs, and community builders to activate vacant commercial real estate spaces so talented artists and creatives like her have space to create and collaborate outside their homes affordably. This has led to a myriad of win-win-win benefits over our first 28 spaces over the last 4 years. To find out more information, you can log on to zeroemptyspaces.com. But the point of the podcast is to connect you with the talented artists and creatives like her that make the program what it is, and this is a unique one. So without much further ado, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself at a high level and how you got started creating?
Well, I'm Jen Stover, and I am from Long Island, New York, grew up there, and I actually was really interested in art at a young age. My mom was an artist, and she was in advertising in New York City, and so I was always kind of surrounded by her creating something. And so I took art lessons when I was about 8 or 9, doing painting lessons, loved it, it was oil painting. And so I was definitely drawn to creating most of my life. And then in high school, I really wanted to pursue art for a career, but I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I loved painting, graphic design. I'm going to date myself now, but that was just becoming like a major in art programs. I was selected as a high school student to get accepted to a college to take college courses in high school, so I can already start working towards an associate's degree in arts.
Nice.
So that was a new program that they just had started within a year or two before I was accepted. I had to put a portfolio together and get accepted and write an write an essay and all that, so kind of like got the college experience before I even got there.
Wow.
And that was really exciting, and so I continued when I graduated high school my studies at that college because I already had the credits to get my associate's degree. The end of my first year of that program, I had to meet with the art teacher who was going to give us our grades. It was a 3-dimensional perspective drawing class, and we had to meet with him one-on-one and hand in our final project for the year, and then he was going to tell us what our grade was. And he was also the head of the department and a very well-known artist in the community. He was a very excellent artist. I sit down with him, all nervous, up all night, with these drawings, and I handed in my project, and he asked me if I ever considered doing anything else besides art. And I said no. And he was like, you may want to think about broadening your horizons and doing something else. And I said, are you telling me I'm not good enough? And he was like, I didn't say that, but you did. Maybe you should think about it. And so I was devastated. I mean, my whole world came crumbling down because I didn't think of anything else besides doing art. And so, of course, family and friends were telling me, no, you're great, you're amazing, you're talented, keep going. And I was like, well, they're friends, they're family, of course they're going to say that, right?
No, you're right.
I was young, insecure, and so I believed him. And because he was so well known and he was such a prolific artist, and I thought, well, he would know. And he was the head of the department, so I was like, he of all people, right? It's not just some art teacher, he was the head. So I believed him, and then crushed and didn't know what to do. And on top of it, I had a father who was not gung-ho about the arts and told me that children do art, adults do not, and I need to find a career that's going to be an adult career. So I had both things riding on me at the time, so I said, okay, well, what am I going to do? I've got to figure it out now. And so, lo and behold, I found medicine and went into the opposite of art, right? Went into science, left brain, right brain. And I fell in love with medicine, went to physician assistant school up in Massachusetts and loved it, and went into emergency medicine and really just never looked back. I just didn't paint, I didn't draw, I just left it behind. And when I graduated PA school, my husband bought me an easel and some paint. And he says, I think you've been missing this, and bought that for me. And I was like, oh my gosh, and of course, like looking at a blank canvas, I didn't know what to do. And I really didn't have any more art training other than that 1 year of college. And I was like, I don't know what to paint. So I started going out with my stepfather, who was an avid photographer, and we would go and take photos. And then one day I just decided, I think I'm gonna just try to paint one of these photos. And I'm gonna try it, give it a shot.
Okay.
And I also started doing, there was a local pastel artist in the community where I was living, going to school. And after I finished the PA school where I was working, and in New Hampshire. And so I started taking some classes with her, and it just kind of got my juices flowing, I guess, my art juices flowing again. I didn't love pastel so much, it wasn't the medium for me, but for, a couple of months I took some classes with her. And then I kind of started veering off into painting again and started to try to mimic photos. I guess at that point I figured if I can paint something that looks like a photo, then I can prove to myself that I'm good enough, that I'm an artist. And so that's kind of how I went into the photorealism journey of my paintings, as you can see in here.
Mm-hmm.
And so for a long time I struggled with like the self-doubt and the imposter syndrome and all of that. But I finally got to the point where I was like, I think I'm good enough. And so I still continued to work full-time as a physician assistant. I worked in the emergency room, and it was kind of like my outlet. My days off, I would work 3 or 4 days straight, 12-hour days, 12 plus. And then I'd have a day or two off, and like I just spent those 2 days, as everyone else in the world was working, I was home by myself, and I was like, I'm just gonna paint, and I'm gonna just get creative. And so that's what I did. So I did all these paintings on the side, and worked at it and practiced, and finally got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm good enough. And then when I was working in part-time in an urgent care, they asked me if I would put some of my paintings in there, and so I did that. That's at Jupiter Medical Center. They're still there, the urgent care centers. And then they opened up another one, and I put in stuff in there, and then they opened up another one, and I put one in there, and then I got some other people asking in their physical therapy department if they could put some paintings in there. So, and the Needle and Breast Cancer Center. So I have built up this clientele, I guess, with the Jupiter Medical Center,
Nice.
Which is amazing, and also some private commissions, and so it was all good. But I was still working full time, so it was really hard for me to focus on an art career at that point.
Well, hopefully you don't need to go to the Jupiter Urgent Care Medical Center, but if you do,
Right.
No, and I appreciate you sharing that, and I appreciate you sharing specifically initially with the experience with the college professor and with your father. That I find happens so many times. And a lot of people, that is the end of the road, and they don't pick it back up, and they are, their future is determined by one decision, one choice that really, that's not the be-all, end-all. I'm sure he was knowledgeable and talented and the local and the head of the blah, 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 but, who is he to decide your future? So I'm glad that you were able to kind of break past that, and I'm glad that you did take your husband's gift and offering, because just because, somebody provides it for you doesn't mean that you use it or take advantage of it. But thankfully also we know how demanding the medical field is on, essential workers, on healthcare workers. Could you tell us maybe the time period, I don't know if it was pre-COVID or during COVID, but kind of how art Was therapeutic outlet, healing, or balance for you in that regard?
Absolutely, yeah. That's what it was. It was just my outlet, and you're working in the emergency room. Those long 12-hour shifts are taxing mentally and physically. All day, you're just constantly seeing patients that have somewhat life-threatening issues, and like your mind is just constantly focused on, what's coming next, what am I doing, who am I seeing, what's going, like, so where am I with this patient and this patient, and do I get the tests, and do I put the order, it's just constant all day. And then you walk away, you leave it at home, you leave it there, you walk home, you walk out of there, you go home, and you have a day or two off, and it's just like, you kind of feel like a weight's been lifted off of you when you have that day off. But then, when I don't know, I just kind of, it's not enough. Like for me, it wasn't enough. I needed to just like totally step away and not think about it. And art was such a great distraction. Because my husband's working, my friends are working, when I'm home, and it's like, yeah, I can run some errands and do some laundry, but like, how long does that take, right? So then you're stuck at home. I don't want to sit and watch TV all day, so
Right.
I figured I'm going to do something productive, and it just consumes me. And I can focus on my art for hours, and it feels like 10 minutes has gone by. I mean, that's how entrenched I get. And
Amazing.
I love it. I love that process of, starting something, and like the kind of watching it take form, and then like the kind of ugly stage that it goes through before it becomes pretty or better and decent, and you're proud of it. I just kind of love getting lost in that process.
100%.
And it was such a release and such a distraction and therapeutic, really,
Yeah.
from the hustle and bustle and craziness of the emergency room.
It is therapeutic and it is healing, and you don't. One thing that some people get caught up on, I don't think this is the case with you so much, but people get caught on, like, understandably, degrees and certifications are important, but like to do art therapy, that was your, that was a form of therapy, that was a form of self-care, that was an outlet, that was beneficial. You don't need a class or certification to achieve a feeling or an outlet, so that's a very friendly reminder, and I really appreciate you sharing transparently. Could you just, I forget the timeline, did you stop before COVID working in the medical field, or was it during COVID, or?
It was right around, I stopped in 2022.
Okay.
So it was just about after when COVID was kind of still around,
Okay.
but calming down. But I was in the ER when it started, before we actually knew what it was.
Right.
And so when I was already kind of burning out from the medical field before COVID even started. Maybe about 8 months before, I really was like, I don't know if there's something, I'm not happy, and I don't know why. Like, I couldn't figure it out. I didn't realize it was burnout right away. And so I was just like, I'm not happy. I'm complaining a lot more than I usually, I'm not a big complainer, but I started complaining more, and like little things started bothering me, and nitpicking, and like all of that started happening, and I was like, what is going on? And so I thought maybe I started realizing I wasn't happy going into my shifts. I was more stressed when I was leaving them. I wasn't looking forward to my day in the ER, which I always did. And then I started realizing, okay, maybe it's just the ER. Like, maybe I just need to separate from the emergency room, take a break, do something else. The great thing of being a PA or physician assistant is that you can switch fields. You don't have to take another certification or whatever. I can go from the ER to primary care or pediatrics very easily. And so I thought, you know what, maybe a teaching opportunity had come about that I wasn't looking for, but it happened to have happened at that time, and I was like, maybe that's what I need. I need something different, to be around students and be around people who want to be, who are excited about being a PA, excited about the program, excited about learning. And I always mentored as a PA, so I thought that would be like a good next step. I loved mentoring the students, and so I did that for about a year, a little over a year, actually more like 2 years, and I I was the clinical director for a PA program which deals with the clinical sites for the students. So I was the point person for all of the clinical sites, all the physicians, PAs, DOs that we were dealing with for all of the students. And it was a lot of work on top of teaching. And I love the teaching, I love dealing with the students, but I just wasn't finding it as rewarding as I thought I would.
Sure.
And finally came to the conclusion that I don't want to do this anymore. I'm burning out. I read an article on burnout and I was like, oh my gosh, this is me. And so I, had that decision with, talk with my husband, what am I going to do? I don't want to do medicine anymore. And that was such a hard decision. It was my life, 20 years, and so what do you do now, right? And so we discussed it and I had to figure out what my next step was. And he said, I think you should pursue your art. You've always wanted to do it and you're amazing at it and you should do it. And I never thought of it as like full time. I always thought of it as something just like a fun thing, a release, therapeutic. And so I thought about it, and I finally said, I know what I want to do. This is what I want to do.
Way to go, Teddy. Yeah.
Way to go, husband.
Yeah. And it's a beautiful thing, and I appreciate you sharing that because I know there's one person, hundreds of people, dozens of people that are in a similar situation. If it's teaching, if it's working in medicine, if it's being a police officer, or whatever it may be. And it happens. It happens to the best of us. All the right intentions. You're doing something that you went to school for, that you trained, that you put your life and soul into, and then you reach a point. And oftentimes, people don't really listen to their gut, and they keep going and burning themselves out further and further, and don't take care of their mental health, self-care, their children, whatever. So I commend you on that. This is also a good time to mention we are going to have a workshop on burnout for creatives.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Because it does happen even for creatives.
Absolutely.
And then if this is your business and you're reaching a block mentally or otherwise, there are tools. We happen to like mindfulness and breath work and yoga. You don't have to do all of them. You could do one of them. That can help get through these difficult times in life. And art, as we've obviously now alluded to, is very therapeutic, cathartic. It could be obviously could be a million different things for a million different people. So I really do appreciate you sharing that. And it's been beautiful to support your practice now for a little under 2 years, from when you joined us initially at the Mid in Lake Worth to now being here in the Boca Raton Innovation Campus. It's been beautiful to watch your work grow and evolve and develop and reach new levels, and it is definitely photorealistic. But you have another, I think you're our first true designer that has actually been in the space, with pattern design. So can you tell us a little bit about some of your other creative outlets and other mediums that we're seeing behind us here?
I do want to point out too, while I was going, you had mentioned the mindfulness, and while I was going through this process of figuring out what the burnout really was, because I wasn't sure, I did start diving into more yoga, mindfulness. I do meditation. I still do it every day, and I do yoga 3 times a week, and it's totally transformed me as a person. I never really had an issue with patience because as an artist, I can focus very well. But I have noticed it's just kind of, I don't really focus on as a business owner, you have to keep constantly thinking ahead and thinking, 2 or 3 steps ahead of what's going to happen and what you're planning and all of that. And I've been more of a perfectionist, and the yoga and the mindfulness has definitely helped me kind of relax in that realm. And I highly recommend it.
Yes.
Yes. meditation and mindfulness works.
Free, available on the internet, free, available oftentimes in your community if you seek out for it, and it can come however it comes into your life. And if this podcast helps one person discover the power of the breath and mindfulness and a little bit of mobility and a little bit of yoga, even if you just do 5 minutes in the morning in bed, putting your knees to your chest, doing a couple twists,
Or just a couple of deep breaths.
that's yoga.
That's all you need.
So by all means, I appreciate you sharing that, and we are excited to bring more workshops. We framed them initially as business workshops. The first one was with an art and entertainment attorney, so we talked about, the law elements of art, consignment, your intellectual property. We do want to do another one about branding for artists, because that's something that artists sometimes struggle with, and some artists are very good at it as well. And then even like things like ChatGPT and Midjourney, and maybe ways to optimize your business side of things, and like writing your bio and writing your descriptions and writing blog posts and writing articles. So these are some of the things, if you stay tuned to Zero Empty Spaces on social media, on our website and whatnot, we'll keep you posted, and we want to make these available for free, because we do this because it's the right thing to do. So I appreciate you mentioning that. We'll keep everybody in the loop. But I do want to have you tell about the patterns. That was a good. You can always bring up yoga.
So, when I started thinking about what kind of art do I want to do as a business, I have paintings that I've been doing over the years, and I still love doing the paintings, but I realize art's changing. People, even just friends and family that I've talked to over the years, the biggest question I always get is how long does it take you to do a painting? And where do you sell, right? And so how long it takes me depends, because I was doing it part-time, so I wasn't just sitting down and painting for a day or two and then I'm done.
Right.
Like, it was like over weeks and months sometimes. So it was hard to answer. And also the selling part was, I have some of my paintings in local places like Jupiter Medical Center and stuff like that, but I never really had a website. I wasn't really into that. So I knew, and the art circuit isn't the same. And people can go into Home Goods and buy a painting for $50. So when you tell them, an original is, $900, $2,000, whatever you want to charge, a lot of times people don't understand why it's so expensive. And they don't understand how much time and effort goes into it. And, we're not just mass producing at Home Goods, right? Even though that would be great if you are, but most of us aren't. And so I realized I wanted to do something a little bit different. And one of my favorite things to do, especially when I was, when I wanted to have a day off of work or whatever, I would love going into like my local stationery and like home goods stores, and I just love looking at patterns. Yes. The patterns and the colors, like, give me a good like stationery or like, kind of one of those kinds of stores, and I can get lost all day. And I just always loved that. But I never thought about, well, who makes those, right? Who designs those patterns? Who paints them? Who draws them?
An artist.
An artist. But like, it didn't dawn on me, right? I mean, since I was a kid, I loved that, and I never thought about it. And I don't know how I came across it. I think it was something on the internet. It was like searching for something, and it came up that, pattern design, and I'm like, pattern design? So I clicked on it, read this article, and I was like, oh my God, I could do that. Like, artists do that.
Yeah.
I'm an artist.
Has to do it.
Has to do it. How do I do that? So I started researching it and looking into it, and realized that I needed to learn how to use certain programs like Adobe Illustrator, Adobe Photoshop. I taught myself how to do it. I took a course online and learned how to do it, and started making patterns, and some of them I hand draw and hand paint, and then scan it into the computer and make the pattern. and others I make digitally on the computer itself. So it's really kind of just a mix of both worlds, and depending on kind of what mood I'm in, if I'm in a painting mood or if I'm in a digital mood. And so I learned how to do the patterns, and now I am looking to license the artwork to companies. And there's plenty of different types of companies. There's the nice thing about pattern design, it's called surface pattern design because it can go on any surface. So you think of tablecloths, wallpaper, pocketbooks, journals, notebooks, phone, iPhone cases, computer, laptop cases, tote bags, anything you could think of. It can go on pillows, bedding, pocketbooks, like this one. This is one of my designs, and it's on a pocketbook. So you can put it on anything.
And while we already mentioned ChatGPT and Midjourney, while ChatGPT and Midjourney are great and at some point are going to eliminate some jobs, yes, maybe, there will need to be an artist creating things, or even an artist telling ChatGPT and Midjourney what to do, because they're not just running on their own, coming out with ideas, executing the idea. There's still a human being involved, and generally that human being is a creative person, creative director, marketing, advertising, branding, so on and so forth. So no, ChatGPT is not going to eliminate every job and not going to eliminate artwork, and obviously also original artwork and original designs that are honestly unlike anything that I've really seen. Because you're right, nothing wrong with Home Goods and or Michaels. They serve the purpose, but generally they're more like cookie cutter designs. No disrespect, the artists are getting paid, and hopefully, and that's great. But these are very unique. So could you maybe, what's one of your more favorite or designs that you're proud about, or something that you'd like to share?
I don't know. I did this one right here. I did with it was a Christmas design because in the pattern world, or whatever you want to call it, industry market. You think about Christmas in July. They always say Christmas in July. That's why, because for designers, you have to think ahead.
Right, right.
So I prompted myself to do a Christmas decor, and I came up with ice skating dogs. I thought would be fun. So this is one of my favorites, and a lot of people like that because who doesn't love dogs, right?
Of course.
And then the butterflies are very popular.
Yes.
And I also do some commissions as well. So I take people's photos of their animals, and I recreate them, illustrate them, and then I put them on blankets or pillows for their home. So and so it's a custom piece. You can't find it anywhere, and it's your animal.
One
so
of
who
one.
doesn't want that, right? So I've done a couple pieces that way as well.
Can you tell us? Would you be open to sharing some of the success stories and commissions that have come through from the space in the building here?
So yeah, we had an open house when we first came. We were actually in the other space next door, and we had an open house that we had some people from the building come in and kind of introduce them to us being here, and that prompted somebody. I had a picture of my mom's dog, which is this one right here. I did it for her for Mother's Day, and he was kind of drawn to it because he has animals and he wanted to know what it was all about. And so I explained to him that I do, I can recreate and illustrate your animal and put it on anything, any surface. And I said most often people want blankets or pillows for their home, but you can do it on anything. And he really was interested and wanted me to do his cat. And so I drew a couple of drawings, he loved them, and decided that he wanted to move forward, and he got a throw blanket for his couch. And then he loved it so much that he wanted me to do another one for his girlfriend. So she has her own cat, and so I did one for her as well.
Cats, dogs.
Cats, dogs.
Whatever you want.
Ferrets, whatever you got.
I mean, tastefully, she's a respectable, artist. So, is that a cockapoo?
Golden Doodle.
Okay, close enough. Great dog. Shout out to Shaman, my old dog. You thankfully were able to get to this part in your journey, and it wasn't easy, and I appreciate you taking the time to show this not straight narrow path but connect the dotted lines. Any creative influences or inspirations that come to mind that have impacted your creative journey, an artist that you admired, a designer that you admired, or anything that come to mind in that regard?
Early on, when I first started getting more serious about painting, like taking photographs and doing more realism, my biggest, probably my favorite artist growing up was Vincent van Gogh, and I got and actually Salvador Dali, and I got the opportunity to travel abroad, and I went to Amsterdam and went to the Van Gogh Museum. That really kind of lit a spark in me, because they had a exhibit there of his drawings
And sketchbooks.
And I loved seeing that his hands were not proportionate, or you always go to a museum. I remember in art school, the short time I was there, you would always go into museums and see these amazing paintings, right? The Renaissance periods and all of these amazing artists, and how beautiful everything is, and they're like perfect drawings or painting. And then you don't really realize, they're just people, and they had to practice too, just like we do. And what I loved about that exhibit was that you saw how he transformed. Like, he would start drawing, they did a whole thing on hands, and he started drawing the hands, and they were all disfigured, and they were, not proportionate. And you're like, that's Vincent van Gogh, right? And then, you see the progression, and he got better and better as he practiced and practiced, and it's like, it humbled me. I was like, he's just a human being, just like us. He wasn't born this master painter, he had to work at it just like we do. And so that was really, that's where I really started. I fell in love with him, followed, all of his paintings, and started reading up about him. I really loved that. And I think Salvador Dali, he was just so different and just such an amazing person. And I was always, it was just so mind-blowing every time I looked at one of his paintings. And it was something that I admire, because I know I can never be that, but I admired him for it. You know what I mean? And then just, there's some local artists too. When I really started getting into painting, after I kind of found it again. Stephen Corey is a landscape artist from Lakeland, Florida. I took a couple of workshops with him. He's amazing. Peter O'Neill, he used to have a gallery in St. Augustine, and I went to visit St. Augustine years and years ago, and just after I started painting again, and he had a painting that I actually bought, first artist painting I ever bought. It was of a little boy in the museum, and he's looking at a Rembrandt, and there's pieces of paper all over the floor. Like, you can tell he was trying to draw the Rembrandt, and it said, "Everyone starts somewhere."
Yes.
Was the name of the painting. And I was like, that's me.
Yes.
And I bought it, and I looked at it every day. Every day I was painting, I would look at that painting before I started painting. Like, everyone starts somewhere, I can do this.
And to your point with the Van Gogh drawings and the sketchbooks, and how you kind of illuminated the fact that he was not always this perfect master painter. We had a previous conversation with the group before about everybody starts at zero. Yeah. Everybody, nobody was born a master. Basquiat, got hit by a car, was in the hospital. His mother gave him Grey's Anatomy.
Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah, gave him Grey's Anatomy. He learned all, and then he started drawing anatomy, and that was part of his artistic journey. So I appreciate you sharing that, and I also share the same sentiment specifically about the Van Gogh Museum, specifically the most amazing part that I took away from that experience was the sketchbooks and the drawings.
It was amazing.
And also Dolly, who we all love and admire. If you ever get a chance, if you're in St. Pete,
Oh, I've been.
go
It's
to the
amazing.
Dolly Museum, and if you're in Amsterdam, go to go to the Van Gogh. And I guess there's also the other Dolly Museum in Spain I haven't been to yet. That's going to be on the list. But you get a lot of inspiration when you see these works that, especially when they're framed in these master artists, museums, that really puts in perspective their journey and their path, and kind of how Dali was painting with this group of surrealist artists and Man Ray and all these people, and how that journey kind of unfolded. And interestingly enough, I feel compelled to share this. I just went to the Vatican and did a tour, and
It's amazing.
the most I've seen so much art in my short time on this earth. That was the most overwhelming experience. And we're on a 3-hour tour. They're taking you through, you're seeing the grounds, obviously the cathedral, everything, but the sculptures. And then they're like blowing through the paintings, and you're like, yeah, we just have some of the most valuable art in the world here. And all of a sudden there was 2 Dalis. And I'm like, I've never seen these before. And they were fascinating. But of course, the tour is going. So I encourage people to go on these tours. Go to the museum. I encourage you to take a tour. If you go all the way to the museum, you might as well take a tour and learn a little bit more about it, because you never know what kind of inspiration, how that's going to impact your journey. I appreciate you mentioning that you bought the artist's work, Peter O'Neill, and that is now part of your day, part of your inspiration, part of your memory, part of your life. And that is one of the most powerful things with art, that it has the ability. Art could be healing, art could be therapy, art could be interior design, art could be history, art could be storytelling, art could be communication, art could be so many different things to so many people. I'm so glad. You're one of the nicest people I've met, one of the nicest artists we've had in the program. I'm so glad that we've been able to support you. Initially at the first space in Lake Worth, which served its purpose, and we were glad to support them. They had no tenants when we moved in there, and now they're full with tenants in the retail component. So the program worked there. But now coming over here to the BRIC, the Boca Raton Innovation Campus, former IBM headquarters, what is having a studio outside of your home meant and done for you as a creative?
It's life-changing. I used to work out of an extra bedroom in my house, very small and cramped. And because it was an extra bedroom, like I couldn't just keep all my, I had to pack everything up and take it out. And then part of that process, you lose that excitement. You're like, oh, I'm ready to go paint. And then I have to take the paint out. I gotta get the water. I gotta, And I know that sounds kind of silly, but it's true.
Is, yeah.
And the space was limited. I really didn't have a lot of area to like walk around and move around. And so that was a little bit frustrating. And there's a lot of distraction at home, right? I mean, especially if you're not feeling it 100%, and you're like, well, maybe I'll just throw a load of laundry in the meantime, or maybe I'll just get a snack, or maybe I'll go take the dogs for a walk, and like you just get, or
there's a purple squirrel.
Yeah. And and so or the phone is a distraction. So you just, it's very easy to slide out of that creative mode.
Yeah.
But when you come to the studio, it's a whole nother world. And not only are you in that creative mode, you have other creatives around you to inspire you and to push that creativity. And to talk to, it gets lonely too, doing it from your home. No one's around, everyone else is, my husband's at work, and I have my dogs I can talk to, but they don't say much. So I guess it's nice to have that, people you can talk to, bounce ideas off of, get feedback from, and it's kind of, and it's like a little, almost like a little family. It's really great.
It is, and this is a great space. We have 19 Chorty Artist Studios here. Really nice people, all different backgrounds, walks of life. no two artists out of the 400 plus artists that we've had come through the program in the last 4 years have had the same style. No two people are alike. And one of the most beautiful exercises that I've enjoyed by doing this as a, from a community building perspective and as an arts advocate perspective is, you guys come in here, and I say this, but it's really starting to make itself more apparent to me, the power of this, based off of what you just shared and some of the conversations we've been having. You come into this space, and these people that are with you are neutral third-party strangers, and they become your studio mates, then they become your friends. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, this space we haven't had any drama. It blows my mind that people want to have drama, but okay. But the fact, the relationships, the support. One of our artists, Deanna, had a show at the Plunge last night. Multiple artists went to show up and support her, give other ideas. Now they're talking about a group show at the Plunge. Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you.
So it's a really beautiful thing. I mean, fortunately, unfortunately, we only have 3 spaces. We're actually just added 4 spaces in South Florida at the moment. We wish we had more spaces because there's so many more artists, but we're doing the best of what we got. We're so grateful to be able to provide support for people like yourself and all the other talented artists here. We do this obviously because it's the right thing to do. We keep it affordable. It's not helping us retire anytime quicker, but it's very rewarding and fulfilling to be able to provide this opportunity and level of comfort and relief and growth and just space for somebody like yourself that deserves it. That, just based off of the way that commercial real estate is, you don't want to take a warehouse out by yourself, for $1,000+ a month without AC and then put it in AC and then blah, 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 blah. It's not in the best area. So we're glad to do it. We're glad to support you. And I would like to take the camera and just show them a little bit about your creative space and process and some of your supplies here.
Sure.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about what you got going on in your studio space here.
So I like to paint mostly with acrylics or gouache. I use a gouache with an acrylic base, so it has it's kind of like a little thicker than watercolor because gouache is a mixture of not a mixture, but gouache is I messed up.
What is it? I'm not familiar with it.
It's kind of like a I don't know how to explain it.
It's a mixture.
It's kind of like a little thicker than watercolor, but not as thick as acrylic.
Oh, interesting.
It's kind of like a middle ground. But the gouache that I use kind of has more of an acrylic base to it, so I use a lot of layers to create vibrant colors with it. So I use gouache, but when I'm playing around and just practicing, I just use some acrylic paint and watercolor. But my main love is the gouache. That's what I love to use.
Okay.
So when I create, I can use a mixture of things. I usually just use a sketchbook or something like that to start creating some designs, and then if I like something, I might pull out, depending on watercolor, or a canvas or watercolor paper, and then make it into a bigger design. And then I take photos of it and I scan it into my computer, and then I make a design out of that. Other times I'll use my Procreate, which is also like a digital sketchbook, and so I just did a design on Procreate with my little turtle. So there's different ways you can, the different ways I can create to make the patterns, but that's basically what I do. Cool.
And if they want to find out more of your patterns and design, where can they find you on social media and the interwebs?
So my website is jenstoverdesigns.com, and my Instagram handle is the same. It's @jenstoverdesigns.
That was available?
Yes.
Awesome. So glad to have you. Appreciate you taking the time to join us.
Yes.
If you haven't been here yet, Boca Raton Innovation Campus, former IBM headquarters, site of the creation of the first PC and Control-Alt-Delete. 19 talented artists here. Open studios first Friday of the month, 4 to 7 p.m. Ton of events going on at the Brick. Stay tuned for more. If you want any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm an open book. You can also find more about the book at learningtochoose.com, and find out more at zeroemptyspaces.com. Appreciate you joining us, Jen.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.